given an engagement ring, and in a few short months, I had a wedding to plan. The time sped by with copious amounts of magazines being read here and there. I love this idea. Well, that idea is ridiculous. I wonder, could Cal wear sandals with his tux? How can I incorporate more than just 2 colors into my wedding scheme? So many different questions. Fast forward 6 months, and Cal and I are sitting in an airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico, waiting on our last leg for our honeymoon. The wedding is behind us. We're beginning to relax, starting to take those deep breaths again. And as the time is passing by, we're sitting in front of one of those duty-free shops, and my mind is triggered. Hey, sweetie, I read an article a little while ago that was talking about how if you buy a new fragrance before you go on your honeymoon, how the smell will stay with you. What do you think? Should we do it? Cal gives me a really coy look and says, well, we've got some time to kill. Let's go for it. Well, what do you know? We get off the plane and make our way to Grenada into our all-inclusive with new fragrances of his and hers Hugo Boss. Fast forward years later, and our favorite advice to offer those that are newly engaged is to buy a new fragrance before your honeymoon. When you smell something, the hippocampus and the amygdala are triggered. These 2 regions of the brain are key for learning and memory. Other senses do not go through this part of the brain, which is why smell is so successful in bringing forth such vivid memories and emotions. Touch and sound do not elicit the same sort of response. In a Psychology Today article, it suggests memories triggered by an odor, like the scent of a rose, were accompanied by greater activity in the brain than memories triggered by images or verbal labels of that odor. Smell is a powerful thing. It can transcend time by placing you back into a particular memory. In our reading from John, Mary lavishes perfume upon Jesus. She takes what could easily be her most costly possession and pours it out onto Jesus' feet. Now, if we stop for a moment and think about what the house of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus must have smelled like after an entire bottle of perfume was poured out, the fragrance must have been overwhelming. In fact, the passage even points it out. The house was filled with the fragrance. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a headache if I put on too much perfume. In fact, I can only be in Bath & Body Works or Yankee Candle Company's store for just a little bit of time before it's just overwhelming. But an entire bottle of perfume that filled the house, the smell must have been pungent. Smell is not a frequent topic in the Bible, but Mary's family is associated with smell in a previous story as well. Mary's brother, Lazarus, had died not long before this scene takes place. In fact, in the chapter just before, chapter 11, Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead. As the scene is set in today's reading, we hear and are able to visualize the characters. Mary is on the floor. Martha has the plates in hand. Lazarus has his feet up and is sitting next to Jesus. Mary, in addition to all those that are present in the home, must have been feeling a myriad of emotions. And I'm sure thankfulness is one of the many thoughts that was going through Mary's head as she anoints the feet of Jesus. Francis Gensch writes, "The proximity of the anointing to the raising of Lazarus suggests that the gesture Mary offers is one of boundless gratitude for bringing her brother back to life. Her act of devotion is clearly extravagant, underlined by its quantity, which is a full pound, its cost, and pointed reference to the fact that its fragrance suffused the entire house. It is one of the few smells on record in the New Testament and contrasts dramatically with the stench anticipated by Martha at Lazarus' tomb. A fragrant smell and grateful love now fill a house that had once been filled with mourning and the smell of death's decay. This potent smell that has overcome this home is a smell of life and love. Another scholar, Gail O'Day, wrote, "The odor of death has been replaced by the odor emanating from Mary's extravagant love. A parfum d'amour, a fragrance of love, if you will." So many of the disciples have a hard time understanding Jesus and what lies ahead for him. But not Mary. Mary understands. Mary gets it. She begins anointing Jesus as a precursor for his upcoming death. She intentionally and eloquently gives her most costly possession out of gratitude and love for her friend and teacher. Mary smashes the cultural norms by touching Jesus delicately with her hands. She uses her hair to caress his feet and absorb the remaining perfume. Even today, this gesture would have made her a social pariah. She would assuredly have received glaring looks, and the pointing and whispers would have been deafening. But that does not matter for Mary. She wants to minister to Jesus, and she does so in an ornate and transformative way. Those that watch this memorable scene unfold are speechless. Judas is the first to find his words, and he makes it known that Mary's actions are inappropriate. He calls her out by claiming her behavior as a crime of neglect to those in need. The way Judas goes about framing Mary's actions, though, are curious. He creates a dichotomy between extravagant love and service. I imagine Judas's mindset being, Mary cannot do both. It's an either-or, Jesus. She doesn't understand what you have been teaching. We should not be wasting our things. We should be using them to help others. This mindset of mine, kind of getting into where Jesus was thinking, reminds me of a poem written by a community in Scotland, a community called Iona. This community is a Christian ecumenical community that's working for peace and social justice, rebuilding of community, and the renewal of worship. The title of this poem is called Waster. It was on the Wednesday that they called him a waster. The place smelled like the perfume department of a mall. It was as if somebody had bumped their elbow against a bottle and sent it crashing to the floor, setting off the most expensive stink bomb on earth. But it happened in a shop. It happened in a house, not a shop. And the woman who broke the bottle was no casual afternoon shopper. She was the penniless, poorest of the poor, giving away the only precious thing she had. And he sat still while she poured the liquid all over his head, as unnecessary as aftershave on a full crop of hair and a bearded chin. And those who smelled it, and those who saw it, and those who remembered that he was against extravagance called him a waster. They forgot that he was also the poorest of the poor. And they who had much and who had given him nothing objected to a pauper giving him everything. Jealousy was in the air when a poor woman's generosity became an embarrassment to their tight-fistedness. That was on the Wednesday when they called him a waster. Can we demonstrate extravagant love and serve those in need? Or is extravagant love wastefulness Jesus rebukes Judas's stance. Leave her alone. Extravagant love and caring for others is not either or. It is both and. There is a way in which you can extravagantly love those you serve. Mary illustrates what it means to be a disciple through her enthralling actions. She ministers to Jesus by kneeling before him and serving him. One definition I came across of extravagance is unrestrained or fantastic excess of actions. Thinking about Mary's actions and what we should do with it, I find this definition to be most helpful. If we think of in terms of both and, being fantastically excessive with how we care for others is a beautiful way to share the love of God. Now, there's not too much that we can do. In fact, we can always give more. Smashing the bottle, pouring it all out, being fantastically excessive, and sharing the fragrance of love. There's this one ministry that comes to mind when thinking about extravagantly loving and serving others. It's called the Downtown Welcome Table, and it's so much more than just a soup kitchen. This outreach ministry has worked collaboratively with local restaurants to have high-end food every Wednesday and Sunday. The church has been transformed from an old, abandoned place to a vibrant and active staple in the community. The Downtown Welcome Table has 4 lunch seatings, as well as 3 lunch seatings on Sundays. So 4 on Wednesday, 3 on Sunday. In addition, they also offer haircuts, clothing, miscellaneous items, places of respite, and restrooms. The meal is for those who are experiencing homelessness, those who want to learn more about the organization, and also those who just want or need a meal. The intentionality and the creativity behind this ministry and how they care for others is fantastically excessive. The Downtown Welcome Table rests on the assumption that food is a primary means of grace. It is a way to love and connect. It's a homemade meal served on abundant plates by an attentive waitstaff. Cloth napkins, flowers on the table, and china plates send the message, you deserve the very best. They're meant to counter the notion often held by those living on the streets that handouts, hand-me-downs, and leftovers are all I deserve. The Downtown Welcome Table was never intended to be a soup kitchen or feeding line. Their intention is to offer a meal as a crossroads of diverse community, a gathering of disparate folks, a fork and spoon invitation to prince and pauper alike. This is just one example of extravagant love and service. There are so many other ministries and organizations that serve from this place of abundance and extravagance. This kind of service that Mary teaches us in this story is what Jesus affirms. It is not wastefulness. There is room to serve and be extravagant in your love. When Mary shared the perfume with Jesus, it was so rich a smell that it did not easily wash off of him. In fact, just a few days later, when Jesus was on the cross, there was a lingering smell of the perfume on his body. In his last moments, as he takes those final breaths, he breathes in and is reminded of the love that was shown to him. When others smelled that fragrance after Mary anointed Jesus, they too must have been taken back in time to the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, remembering that Jesus' words, "But you do not always have me." This memory, brought on by smell, surely helped the disciples of Jesus to share the love of God with all those that they encountered, serving them through their actions. When we care for one another, when we love one another, we we too share in God's extravagant love. A love that Mary demonstrated to us. A love that Jesus gave us. A love that God continues to lavish upon us each and every day. When Cal and I use our special fragrances, we are reminded of past memories that we've shared. But we also create new memories every time we use those smells. When we serve others, may we think of our actions as a way in which we can share in the love of God. Now, friends, take a deep breath in. Notice the smell. Might it be the fragrance of love, a love of extravagance and service? As we continue on our Lenten journey, may different smells stop us in our tracks and remind us to serve others